Plugin of the week is the Universal Audio API 2500. This is a great emulation of a classic API. When I say classic, it's kind of interesting because it's not that old. I believe this was made in the late 90s, early 2000s. The hardware unit. There are two basic versions of it, one that can be built into an API desk and one that's a rack-mounted piece of gear. It's a great mix bus compressor. Really powerful VCA compressor, all discrete components. And UA has done a great job of emulating all of the custom transformers and the 2510 and 2520 op amps that are a part of it that give its characteristic sound. And they've really done an end-to-end emulation to kind of capture every aspect of it so that you can really dig into what it does. This is a very unique and powerful VCA compressor that gives you tools that you don't find on almost any other limiter or compressor. You'll have knee controls, which they have here. You got 3 settings for knee, but you really see like something what they call a tone control. What they call the thrust service, and this is just like a different, rather than just sort of having the generic high pass filter type of thing for keying. They actually do some different characteristics that allow you to shape the top end as well in a boosting kind of way, and this changes the aspect of the way that it works. It also works on something interesting. A lot of older limiters work on a feedback style compression. This works on a feed forward or feedback style compression. So newer limiters and VCAs work on a feed forward style, which means that the input signal comes in, gets split, and then goes into the sidechain circuit through any filtering or whatever manipulation through the threshold, and then that's what tells the gain reduction circuit how to apply gain reduction. In a feedback style, it goes through the gain circuit, and the output of the gain circuit, in this case post output gain, feeds back into the gain reduction circuit, and that determines gain reduction. So it's kind of an interesting thing. One is a little bit crisper and cleaner, which is the new. One is a bit warmer sounding, which is the feedback style, and you can kind of play with them both to figure out which one is going to sound best overall. Now, with a lot of the API stuff, let's do an overview here and just kind of go through it. So to start off with, I'm just going to zoom in here and focus on this. We have a compressor section with standard stuff. We've got a threshold. This is on a variable control. The attack times are set here, and they're configured in such a way that they're in stepped positions, basically is what it is. And so that 0.03, that's not 3 milliseconds, that's 0.03 milliseconds, which is 3 microseconds. So as you're kind of working through the scale here, you get super fast attack times and down to 30 milliseconds, which is a good, kind of moderate, slow attack setting that you would have, especially for a VCA compressor. You see it a lot on like the SSL compressor has a 30 millisecond attack time on its low setting, on its slow setting. Then you have a ratio, again, all step selections, 1.5, 2 to 1, 3 to 1, 4 to 1, and infinity to 1 for your excessive limiting needs. And then you have a release time, which also has stepped characteristics. Now, the cool thing about this is if you put it all the way over to the end, then you get a variable control. And the variable control will go from the 50 milliseconds all the way up to 3 seconds. So that gives you a pretty wide range of control. So if you find that you're maybe between the 100 and the 200, you could just flip it over to here and then find that center wherever it is, on the variable knob setting. So the variable knob only works when you have it all the way clockwise to the right, and you have that there. The tone control, there's a few aspects of this. There's the knee. The knee is how aggressively the ratio is applied when the signal exceeds threshold. So hard knee will be more aggressive sounding, more attacking or biting with the compression, and the soft will be smoother and allow more of the transient to kind of cut through. So essentially think of it somewhat like a ratio for your ratio. Right, so like a like a crossfade for your ratio, like that type of thing. And so the soft would give you a broader crossfade of bringing in your ratio. So that's like one way to look at it. The loudness control also includes, or tone control, section also includes a thrust section, and this is the sidechain circuit. So in the loud section, what you get is a dipped, basically just a tilted EQ, which dips low frequencies and boosts high frequencies. Then the medium circuit, what that does, if you select a medium circuit, is it kind of cuts low end, is flat in the mid-range, and boosts on high frequencies. And the normal gives you a flat frequency response end to end. So you have three different circuits, and then you have the old or the new feedback or old feed forward or feedback style compression. And each one of these give you different characteristic sounds. Now, when you're working with the stereo version of this, then you also get something that's really interesting, because most compressors, when they work, they will work left and right, either linked or completely independent of each other. And so you can work in the independent mode, or you can work in the 100% linked, but it also gives you variation. So this way, if you have some content where maybe you have some aggressive things on one end of the mix, but not on the other, and you don't want that to drive as much compression on the other side, you can kind of tilt the amount that it affects the other side by going and by pulling back on that percentage, so you can create some less affecting of the two sides. So that's kind of cool. Usually, especially for mixes where I'm going to demonstrate it here, it's in some kind of link or full link. There's also some filters that can be dropped into this as well. Now, they don't give frequencies on any of the filters, but the basic idea of the filters and the filter shapes, and you can go through all the three different things where you have a band pass, high pass, low pass, right? So you can go through those different variations. What this will do is this will shape the way that the link kind of works. So if you have like a driving low end or something like that, which is kind of odd to have over to one side, but if you had something like that, you could kind of filter it off so that's not driving compression on the other side. So this helps to create a rejection circuit, or just basically filtering out what you don't want to be affecting the signal. So whatever circuit design or shape curve that you use here will be basically there. Now, the whole the metering can be set up to show gain reduction, output, or input. So that's pretty straightforward. There's one other feature here which is kind of cool, which is a headroom feature. What this does is it kind of allows you to set a balance of where the threshold lies. So if you're working within a certain standard, like a -14 or a -20 or whatever, you can kind of shift it one way or the other. I think it defaults to a -16. And so if you shift it up higher, it'll basically it's like swinging the threshold down lower, right? So you're driving more input level and less output level to balance it out. So the gain doesn't actually change. That's the basic idea of it with the input and output gain, but that's not actually what's happening. But the basic idea there is that you're setting it up so that you work with some basic nominal settings here, and you can kind of balance this in based on the amount of gain that you're running. Like right now I have this on the mix bus, and so we'll demonstrate, and I'll show you how that works. But it's a really cool way, because once you kind of configure things the way you want, you could just set that headroom control rather than just adjusting the threshold or tweaking settings. And when you shift it one way or the other, it does give a different characteristic, because you may be driving the transformers and the op amps in a different way depending upon the way that you set your threshold or headroom setting here. The whole thing can be placed in or out of the circuit. There's also a way to bypass this where essentially if the EQ is, if the compressor is not in, the compression can be out of the circuit, but you would still be running through the transformers and op amps and stuff like that. So it would you would get some of that tonal coloration that would come through that, but you have the ability to bypass that if you want. And there's also an automatic makeup gain, or you can switch it to manual, in which case you would have your own control here up to 24 dB of makeup gain. One feature which does not exist on the hardware is a mix control. So it goes from a 0%, which is no compression, to 100%. So you could do parallel compression within the whole thing. So let's have a listen here, and let me just double check some of my settings here. And what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna take some of the other stuff I have on the mix bus out here for a second, and let's just pop this. All right, so this L2 on the end is just making sure we don't clip, so we will not be hitting any of that.
It's enlightening. we can use a star. We are standing just feet apart, not recognizing the reflection of a superstar. When your legs start to give up.
So one of the classic VCA style compressor settings to do is to set up with a 30 millisecond attack, a slow attack, and a fast release. So I kind of have that set up here. On its fastest release time, which is pretty quick, it's 50 milliseconds, which is pretty fast for that. So I can get a quick recovery, and this is like a great way of getting something to kind of pop or pump through in the mix, and then I can adjust the ratio to kind of get different density characteristics. So what I'll do here is I'll kind of skip forward a little bit here. Maybe I should have my memory locations handy, and then this way I can kind of drive it. So let's just. All right, so that's with a 3-to-1. If I step up the 4-to-1. All right, just to give a little bit of a warmer pump, but I can make it also a bit lighter, and then lower threshold. And that just creates, like, you know, less gain reduction. I kind of liked where I was, like around 3-to-1. Now, right now it's on the loud curve. So I want to just kind of go through some of the settings here. The hardening. Medium. All right, so we'll go back to the chorus. I think what I'm going to do here, just to kind of make it a little bit clearer, specifically with the drums, is I'm just going to kill the lead vocal here, and then let's just. And it looks like my background stems got mixed up here. Always have your demo material ready a little bit faster. We'll move that up here. Okay, so we have the vocals missing. There we go. Okay, all right, so apologize for the setup there. Here we go. Soft. Medium. So I kind of like the soft, you know, just to kind of smooth it out a little bit. Let's kind of play with the tone control and show you how. I want to show you how this can really affect it, because as it's tilted more towards high frequencies, it will be a little more responsive to transient energy and allow a bit more of the low end energy to kind of push through. So. Now the gain reduction is obviously shifting here as well, so I'm going to make a couple of adjustments here. So if I set this to loud, I probably will bring the threshold up a little bit. So each one has like a little bit of a unique thing. I was kind of liking where the loud was going. I take that back. I'm going to go with the normal setting here. But it gives you like a different, the way it reacts differently, and it will make the mix drive or pump or breathe based on the input content. So I can tilt it one way, but this kind of takes the pumping from the compression of the kick drum away a little bit. So, which I kind of wanted in here. So I'm going to go with a normal setting and not tilt some of that stuff off. Now we can kind of warm this up a little bit by going to a feedback style compression, because right now we're on a feed forward, which is a little bit more clearer sounding, more open sounding. So in this case, I like the feed forward. And I don't need a lot here. You can drive this certainly a whole lot more. There are many ways to kind of go with this and work with it. I do want to show just a couple of other features real quick, just to show you the headroom feature here. And then, right, so you can see that's driving more gain reduction, driving it harder, in which case I would have to which would be driving the components a bit more, or I can go for more headroom, lower my threshold. And that gives me more headroom, not driving as much warmth into it, and giving me more openness with the sound. So I can kind of push it either way on that side, and get like some subtlety with the different character. And it's really cool the way that Universal Audio has set this up so that you can actually really dig into that. It's very cool. And let's see. So it goes into stepped settings that go across. So you can kind of follow them. They, I know it's very small, but they kind of click into steps. So it's sometimes hard to tell whether something is on like a moderate setting or the setting that you want. But it's kind of cool. And then you can run the parallel compression here. For the sake of time, I'm not going to run like full examples of everything. But this is just like sort of a classic way that you would use this, and you can see how there's a lot of flexibility and movement and capabilities with the tonal character of this. So very cool one. And that's why it's worthy of more than worthy, I would say, of a plugin of the week. An amazing hardware piece that's used on so many mixes you don't even know. Great VCA compressor with a lot of really, really cool tonal controls and ways of shaping the sound. And from Universal Audio, the API 2500 is the plugin of the week.